Tonight we'll be looking at the way we can build and experience bridges between these three different fields of the discovery of truth, or the discovery of deeper insight into the nature of the universe. So let's move forward then. This is a lovely symbol of the way seeming opposites can be bridged, and that there's an energy that integrates them into one vision and one larger view of the nature of reality. That was done by a Danish artist who's also an engineer and a clairvoyant. So when he sees things, he is able to paint them down from his own perceptions. And one of the wonderful symbols of the nature of this integration and of the very connectedness of reality is the ancient and well-known flower of life, shown here. It's quite packed with meaning. For example, the circles themselves are a representation of wholeness and completeness, but also when you look at each of the points where the lines join, they're joined with their neighbours as well, making up a web work of reality. So it's found in Egypt and Turkey, as you see there, and also in other parts of the world. One of the primary aspects of reality I want to look at for a time tonight is that of energy. Now, in the theosophical literature, right from the beginning with H.P. Blavatsky and her monumental work, Secret Doctrine, we have these quotes on the nature of energy, which is understood to be a manifestation of Fohat, a Tibetan term. But just to read to you what's here, she writes that in the manifested universe, there is that which links spirit to matter, subject to object. This is at present unknown to Western speculation, called though by the occultists Fohat. It is the bridge by which the ideas existing in the divine thought are impressed on cosmic substance as the laws of nature. Now, just explain a wee bit there more about the use of the word occultist. Many people in Western society will have associations of evil and nasty people dancing around cauldrons and doing maybe even black magic. But the way Blavatsky uses this term is in its primary meaning, which is merely that which is hidden, that which is out of view to ordinary sight and thought. So Fohat, then, she proceeds, is just the dynamic energy of cosmic ideation, or, regarded from the other side, it is the intelligent medium, the guiding power of all manifestation, of the thought divine, transmitted and made manifest through and by the Dhyani Chohans, which is another Tibetan term, who are regarded as the intelligences embedded in and manifesting as nature, the architects of the visible world. So there's much to think there, and her primary words, her initial wording is quite wonderful. So just a little bit more on that. Comes from a different source, which is the Mahatma letters. Now, Mahatma is a Sanskrit word meaning great soul, like Mahatma Gandhi. But here we have this wonderful source of all sorts of communications from the beings who helped to found the Theosophical Society, along with its physical founders, Blavatsky and Olcott and the others. So now to give another quote from another of the iconic books in the Theosophical original literature, called the Mahatma Letters. Now, Mahatma is a Sanskrit word meaning great one or great soul, as you may recall Mahatma Gandhi as the term that they applied to him, which says that there is a force as limitless as thought, as potent as boundless will, as subtle as the essence of life, so inconceivably awful in its rending force as to convulse the universe to its centre, were it but used as a lever. There are people who have learned the secret of subjecting this force to their will when necessary. So I think these two or three quotes give you an idea that this is a primary cosmic emergent energy which is to be found expressed in all the energies of our physical world, like sound, light, electricity, radiant energy of light and X-rays, etc., etc. So now bridging worlds, we spent a little bit of time in the East, and now let's look at what a few of the Western poets, who I truly believe are mystics and beholders, if not also lovers of reality, the deeper reality. So the first comes from Alexander Pope, where he writes that all are but parts of one stupendous whole, whose body nature is, and God the soul. It warms in the sun, refreshes in the breeze, glows in the stars and blossoms in the trees. Wonderful insights there, I feel. And now Dante in his Paradiso, people probably remember that he wrote about Dante's Inferno, which is one of the parts of this trilogy where he is describing the journey of the soul through all sorts of heights and depths. And here in the Paradiso he writes this: "Within it deep infinity I saw and gathered, and bound by love in one volume, the scattered leaves of all the universe." It's a favourite saying of mine when I want to connect to that realm of insight. Does it not conjure the idea of a cosmic book with uncountable leaves, and that whilst at their extremes they might appear to be scattered and open, but that they're actually bound by the energy of love into one cosmic universe? So here's another one by Percy Bysshe Shelley, where he writes that life, like a dome of many-coloured glass, stains the white radiance of eternity. So these are just, to my mind, incredibly inspiring, but also express that idea of potent energy, but also potent connectedness. That primary energy also being that of love. And now another, this is a Western mystic this time, one of the saints who was close to the spirit of the great Gnostics of the past. And she regularly had these experiences of cosmic consciousness, where she felt herself to be absolutely bathed in divine love and insight and knowledge too. And she wrote that it was as if a person who had never learned anything, nor yet was able to read, suddenly found himself in possession of all the data of science. This has reminded me of the people who describe their near-death experiences, and there's a growing number of them to be found up on YouTube these days. Wonderful, wonderful mystical experiences of more or less ordinary people who suddenly feel themselves, as they've gone through the doorways approaching death, if you like, have been taken to a realm of light, all knowledge, all consciousness, and all love. And it's incredible to spend some time comparing the notes of the ancient wisdoms with the reports of people who've had these near-death experiences. And just to give you a few names, there is Anita Moorjani with her tremendous near-death experience where her body was literally breaking up. And she knew during the experience that her body would be healed, and it was miraculously at the time. And one more is Beverly Brodsky, who in her own words also just describes a wonderful immersion in the light and love of God, or the divine mind, if you wish to put it that way. So moving on back to the eastern side, what I'm doing is a bit like that image at the front of this presentation, where we had the bridge of light, bridging, in this case, east and west. Here we have a couple of sayings from the world of Buddhism. Lama Anagarika Govinda wrote on the foundations of Tibetan mysticism here, that the Buddhist does not believe in an independent or separately existing external world, into whose dynamic forces he could insert himself. The external world and his inner world are for him only two sides of the same fabric, in which the threads of all forces and of all events, and of all forms of consciousness and of their objects, are woven into an inseparable net of endless, mutually conditioned relations. So he's a Western person. He's been alive in our time, and that he was immersed and steeped in the world of Buddhism, and he is quite clearly drawing the threads of correspondence between East and West. Now, Ajva Ghosh, in The Awakening of Faith, he was the first perhaps to write and record the insights of Mahayana Buddhism, saying that entering into the samadhi of purity, one obtains all-penetrating insight that enables one to become conscious of the absolute oneness of the universe. And a little elsewhere he says, what is meant by the soul as suchness is the oneness of the totality of all things, the great all-including whole. Once again, from these different sources, we're presented with the cosmic insight of utter oneness, and what an extraordinary insight that experience is. Still building bridges and finding links between East and West, I'd like to share with you 3 aphorisms out of 20, which are in a little book called The Secret of Self-Realization by A.K. Timely, which goes back to an even older literature out of India. So here's describing the journey of the soul, and the first one of all is that the ultimate reality in its chit aspect, or universal consciousness, being absolutely independent and self-contained, is the ultimate cause of manifestation, and bringing a manifested system to its appointed consummation. Then he proceeds to say that this reality, emerging as divine power by her own independent will, unfolds the manifested universe on the screen of her own consciousness. Skipping now to aphorism 5, we find that it says that it is nothing but the ultimate reality, which, descending from the stage of pure consciousness, becomes the individual mind by becoming contracted to and assimilated with the images of objects present in the field of consciousness. So I'd like to share with you now a video in which Deepak Chopra gives us some very interesting insights on the universe and how science has made incredible advances, but it still is confronted eventually by the screen of mystery. So I think you'll enjoy the way he portrays this. He's quite delightful in this video.
Just recently finished a tour about a year ago on a book called God, A Story of Revelation. And it's about 10 chapters, 10 stories. Starts with the Old Testament, with the story of Job. As you know, he's the man who does everything right and yet suffers. The book starts with the revelations of 10 people. It starts with Job. It ends with Einstein and Tagore. And the reason I wrote the book was I accidentally found one of those Google searches, an article in the New York Times when the Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore met Einstein in 1930 in a city called Potsdam in Germany. It was a very interesting conversation because, you know, if we go to these science conferences, you hear this constant argument between what is called realism and idealism. Einstein was a realist, which basically means that in the philosophy of science and consciousness, a realist is a scientist who believes that the world exists independent of whether we are there or not. Everybody's familiar with Einstein's famous statement, the moon would still be there if I was not looking at it. So this is a very interesting conversation which got lost in the zeitgeist of pre-war Germany and Hitler and all that. Because at the end of the conversation, it's clear that Tagore has implanted the seed of doubt in Einstein's mind. Anyway, I wrote the story because of that. The two fundamental questions in science today, the two open questions, you can Google this, go to the year 2008 and look up science, open questions. The first is, what's the universe? What is the universe? What's the stuff of the universe? And I say open because the answer is we don't know. And the second is, what's consciousness? And again, in the same issue of science, open questions in science, what is consciousness? Answer is we don't know, scientifically. No idea what the universe is, and no idea what consciousness is. Are the two connected? Because I think Mauricio said we can't be certain of anything, but I think we can be certain that we experience something called the universe, right? Whatever it is, we experience it. So we know it exists. And the second thing we know is that we exist, even though we may not know who we are. So there is existence, and there's awareness of existence, right? Existence, awareness of existence. And both these seemingly are open questions in science. What is existence? Don't know. What is awareness of existence? Don't know.
So turning once again now to the insights from the West, this time in our own time. This is from a book called The Common Experience, which is an accumulation of over 5,000 experiences of cosmic consciousness by people who are alive in our time. And these might be people who are just cleaning the floor or working in the office or just lying in a field, perhaps looking at nature out there. All of a sudden, they begin to be infused with an extraordinary energy and their consciousness begins to be expanded incredibly. So it's very heartening to know that these people can touch these realms as well, from the near-death experience, as well as the saints of the past, and also further back the Gnostics as they were. So here's one that I'd like to read to you out of this book, The Common Experience. One afternoon I was lying down resting after a long walk on the plain, and the grass was hot and I was on an eye-level view with the insects moving about. Everything was warm and busy and occupied with living. I was relaxed but extraneous to the scene. Then it happened, a sensation of bliss. No loss of consciousness, but increased consciousness. I could feel the earth under me right down to the center of the earth, and I belonged to it and it belonged to me. I also felt that the insects were my brothers and sisters, and all that was alive was related to me because we were all living matter that died to make way for the next generation. And I felt and experienced everything that existed, even sounds and colours and tastes, all at once, and it was all blissful. I had a conviction that a most important truth had been enunciated, that we are all related, animal, vegetable and mineral, so no one is alone. I have never forgotten this experience. I think this is enormously encouraging. It does link us into the thread of wisdom of the saints and the Gnostics of the past. And remember that the thread of ancient wisdom, expressed in our time as theosophy, is based on the experiences of the Gnostics. So this really is drawing together all these different sources. The thought I want to leave with you in this talk is that we are not beyond having this experience ourselves. Theosophy itself is about something that is indescribably real. Yes, it's written down in wonderful books, but it is grounded upon the experiences of the Mahatmas, the saints and the mystics of the past. And they give us their experience, saying, you are on the path that we have trodden. Be encouraged. This universe is linked together. So that's the note I'd like to leave you on in this talk, and there'll be another one next time. Great to share that all with you, and I bid you well for now, and I look forward to being back with you again in the next session. Bye for now.